It is Monday, February the 27th. Just another night of opportunity in the NBA. We did hit 2 of our 3 bets on Friday, so another winning week last week. We look to keep it going here tonight. I'll be involved in 3 games once again. Let's go ahead and get right to them. Why don't we start in Dallas, where the Mavericks host the Miami Heat. Miami a 1.5 point favorite at Betsafe, 200 the total in this game. Now look, at some point we're going to have to accept the Heat for what they are. At some point, they are no longer a bad team that's just on a hot streak. I mean, they have won 16 of their past 18 games. Over the past month and a half, they have been one of the best, if not the very best team in the entire NBA. They're really doing it with a 4-man core. Those guys doing the heavy lifting. I'm talking about Goran Dragic, Hassan Whiteside, Dion Waiters, and James Johnson. Now, Johnson comes off the bench, but he's turned into Miami's most important bench piece, giving him about 30 minutes a night. He's a 4, of course, but very versatile. Can really guard anywhere from the 2 to the 4. And as we said, he's been a big piece here. Miami just rolling. They've been a very good defensive team all year, 6th in the NBA in points allowed, 7th in opponents' field goal percentage, but they've really found themselves offensively over this past month and a half. And look, lately, it's not like they've been squeaking by teams. You look at their last 3 wins, they beat the Houston Rockets comfortably. Houston, of course, one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They blew out the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta, and then their last game, they blew out the Indiana Pacers. All 3 of those teams would be playoff teams if the season ended today. So look, you don't want to get in front of this Miami team right now, and that's exactly where the Dallas Mavericks are tonight. I know this game is in Dallas. I know the Mavericks coming off a nice win of their own, 13-point win over the New Orleans Pelicans. They added Nerlens Noel just before the trade deadline. He's given them a much-needed big body inside. We know this Mavericks team has sorely lacked big bodies all season. Noel did come off the bench against the Pelicans, but gave him 30 minutes and 10 rebounds. They're going to need all of that they can get from Noel going forward. But this Dallas team really struggles to score. Last in the NBA in points scored, averaging just 97.8 points per game. They've scored fewer than 100 in 4 straight. And as we mentioned, Miami, an excellent defensive team, top 10 in the league in both points allowed and opponents' field goal percentage. Dallas, on the other hand, not good defensively, 26th in opponents' field goal percentage. So look, I know this game is in Dallas. I know the Mavericks coming off a nice win. I know there are a lot of people who think, hey, it has to end sometime for the Miami Heat. I'm just not sure if it's going to end tonight. I think Miami goes into Dallas, really suffocates this Mavericks team that struggles to score, and I think the Heat pick up their 17th win in their last 19 ball games. I am on Miami -1.5. Moving on now to Houston, where the Rockets host the Indiana Pacers. Houston, a 10-point favorite at Betsafe, 231 the total here. Now the Rockets have it rolling. We talked about the Heat. This Houston team, one of the best teams in the Western Conference, they have won 6 of their past 7 ball games. The only loss in there came to the Miami Heat. But aside from that game, Houston has been on fire lately. And in those 6 wins, we mentioned they've won 6 of their past 7. They've scored 120 or more 5 times. This Rockets team, 2nd in the NBA in points scored, behind only Golden State. And since they added Lou Williams from the LA Lakers right before the trade deadline, I mean, they've kicked it up another notch. They've only played twice since the All-Star break, scored 129 against the New Orleans Pelicans in a 30-point win. And then in their last game, they scored 142 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, we know all season the Houston Rockets been getting up and down the floor. They play at a frenetic pace. They attempt more and make more 3-point baskets than any team in the NBA. But let me tell you what, adding Lou Williams to the fold now. Williams, a human heat check off the bench. This guy can put it up, and he can score quickly and score in bunches. This Rockets team, they will challenge Golden State now in terms of the best offensive teams in the NBA. Now, Houston not quite as good as Golden State defensively, and I think that might be what separates the teams in the end. But Houston is good as anybody right now offensively, and I just don't know if the Indiana Pacers have the firepower to keep up. I was about to say to keep pace, but no pun intended there. Look, the Pacers, they've lost 7 of their past 8 games. You look at their last 7 games, 107 points have been the most they've scored. They've been held to 100 or fewer 3 times. And they're not particularly good defensively either. 21st in the NBA in points allowed. We mentioned this Rockets team, an offensive juggernaut. The Pacers, 30-29 on the season, but just 9-19 away from home. They are not good on the road. I know 10 points, a big number here, but when you score as easily as the Houston Rockets, you win plenty of games by double-digit margins. The Rockets have won, of course, their last 2 games by double-digit margins. I think they're going to make it 3 in a row here. The Pacers struggling, ice cold, as we said. They've lost 7 of 8. I think they're going to make it 8 of 9 tonight. I think the Rockets win this game and win it big. Final game I'll be involved in on this Monday, February the 27th. What about the Minnesota Timberwolves going to Sacramento to face the Kings? The T-Wolves, a 5-point favorite at Betsafe, 212.5 the total here. Now, at first glance, these teams, very similar records. I believe only 1 game separates them in the standings. And so at first glance, you see this, you say Minnesota giving 5 points on the road. Seems like a lot of points for this young T-Wolves team to be laying on the road. And I agree, at first glance, it seems that way until you take a little closer look at what the Sacramento Kings are dealing with now, just what they have. Now, after the Kings got rid of DeMarcus Cousins before the All-Star break, I thought that maybe they might go on a little bit of a spurt. We see this sometimes when a team loses their best player, either through injury or through something like this, through a trade. The other guys sort of band together. I mean, they don't want to be thought of as, a one-man band. So when that guy leaves, the other guys see an opportunity there to make a name for themselves. And a lot of times you see a team start to play well when they lose their best player. And immediately after Sacramento lost Cousins, they went out and won their first game after the All-Star break, upsetting the Denver Nuggets. Then came their last game against the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I watched that game. Not sure if you saw it. The Hornets won that game 99-85. It was just as ugly as it sounds. It dawned on me watching that game that this Sacramento Kings team now, without DeMarcus Cousins, I mean, they might be the very worst team in the NBA. Apologies to the Brooklyn Nets here, but the Kings, I wrote it down. Their starting lineup right now, who Sacramento is rolling out there: Darren Collison, Tyreek Evans, Ben McLemore, Anthony Tolliver, Costa Koufos. Again, they only produced 85 points against the Hornets in their last game. Nobody reached the 20-point mark. I mean, where are they going to get their offense? Do I need to read that starting lineup to you again? And look, it's not like they've got anybody. It's not like they've got anybody like Lou Williams coming in off the bench. They do not. This Sacramento team is going to struggle to score on a nightly basis. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they are not struggling to score right now. Now, they might be having some problems on the defensive end, but in their last game, they scored 130 points against the Houston Rockets. That was a loss, 142-130, but still, they put up 130. And their two-man tandem, their inside-outside tandem of Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, boy, are they rolling right now. Wiggins has scored 20 points or more in 17 straight games. Towns, not to be outdone, has scored 20 or more in 14 straight. Karl Anthony Towns with 37 and 22. 37 points and 22 rebounds in the team's last game against Houston. In their last 9 games, in the T-Wolves' last 9 games, Towns is averaging 29.1 points per game. He is an absolute monster. And when you put a guy like Andrew Wiggins, who again has scored 20 or more in 17 straight, when you put a guy like him on the outside, slashing, doing what he does, and you have a guy like Towns in the middle, that is very difficult for opposing teams to defend. And indeed, as we said, they've had trouble defending the T-Wolves here lately. I think Minnesota a much better team than Sacramento right now. I know only a game separates them in the standings, but as we sit here today on February 27th, I think the T-Wolves a much better team. I think they go into Sacramento tonight and pick up an easy win. I like Minnesota -5 there. There you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts for this Monday, February the 27th. I like the Miami Heat -1.5 in Dallas. I like the Houston Rockets to cover 10 at home against the Indiana Pacers. And maybe my favorite game of the night, I like the Minnesota Timberwolves -5 in Sacramento. Folks, I wish you best of luck no matter what you decide to do tonight, just so long as your interests don't conflict with my interests. Enjoy the games.